What's cracking, Wolfpack? Back at you again with another episode of Market Watch Mondays. Just finished getting through the main slate of games in the morning and the afternoon, and dude, it's been a wild one. A lot to talk about through those games. But before we get to anything, man, you know what time it is. Hit that intro.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to cover a few topics today. So there's a lot to go over. I'm going to get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the current state of quarterbacks in the NFL. And I tweeted something to this degree earlier during the games. And if you saw it, great. But basically, I think the NFL is in really good spot when it comes to quarterbacks. There is a lot of studs that already exist, right? You have the Kyler Murrays, the Patrick Mahomes, um, the Russell Wilson, the Lamar Jacksons, and the Dak Prescott when he's healthy, obviously. And then behind him, you got like Josh Allen. You got the new rookies from this year, which what I want to talk about the most is Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa. Right, the three top quarterbacks of the class, all of whom have already shown flashes of why they were such such early and touted picks. Joe Burrow's been balling out in a bad situation already. None of the records really reflect, I think, how big of an impact the quarterbacks have had on the team, except for maybe like Tua Tagovailoa. But Justin Herbert, another tough loss today. And I mean, they threw back-to-back fades in the end zone. Noah's hurting. He's feeling the pain. Just watching that game, it looked like a catch. Obviously, didn't come down with it, so it was a pretty heartbreaking loss for those of you that are watching that game. But what you did like to see was he had no fear, man. Like Justin Herbert, with the game on the line, pushed his team down the field and put them in the position to win and gave them an opportunity to win had it not been for a couple of tough drops. I wouldn't even call it drops. They would have been tough catches that were made, but a really good player probably would have made them between Mike Williams and obviously they're like fourth string tight end out there who also made the drop. But what you love to see is he took the initiative, man. He took the ball in his hands, and when the game was on the line, he won it. Right. That's like the toughest aspect of quarterback play for anyone to evaluate. And the reason why NFL teams miss so much is because like there's so much mental aspect to it. And so far from what we've seen, like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, no fear, right? And they have no problems taking their teams down the line. Justin Herbert probably has the best arm talent out of the three, and one of my main fears coming in was how he would deal with pressure, how he would be able to deal with like NFL like blitzing and all the different defensive coverages that he didn't face in college. So far, he's handled it about as well as anyone could. Obviously, I'd say I would not blame any of the loss on Justin Herbert. It had a big problem with Anthony Lynn and the coaching staff in terms of their play calling and just the way they called the game, and how they coached down the line. Because you just on variance alone, you shouldn't be in that many close games and never come out on top. Like that when that happens, is usually has to do with coaching. So hopefully they fix that aspect of it. But as far as I'm concerned, man, I'm totally sold on Justin Herbert. He is an absolute fucking stud, and we had a bit of a scare with him going down, but going forward for the future, he is that dude. And we already know we've seen him with Joe Burrow as well. Also, that dude. And today we saw it again with Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, last week didn't really need him to do much because the defense and special teams did everything. And then obviously the guys over at Roto World tweeted out some like butter super salty stuff about how like Tua wasn't good and he was like boring and like blah 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 about how like there's rumors now that like the reason why they want to start Tua is because they don't have full faith in him and they might want to like draft someone else in the next year's class. Tua came out and went toe to toe with one of the best in the league in Kyler Murray and basically showed out, man. He played a pretty damn near flawless game, if you call it that, for a rookie in his second start. I mean, he's shown a lot of the traits that all of us loved in college: his accuracy, his ability to put it and dart it on a string to his wide receivers. In a lot of moments, I think I saw. You can see the trust he has in Devontae Parker and also Preston Williams because there was a lot of tight coverages, but he was just dropping in there and placing it exactly where it needed to be. And I think in the offseason, we brought this up, but Terrell Owens, Bringer Popcorn, he basically went in the offseason and did some workout sessions with Tua. And I heard him on the podcast. I think it was Fantasy Pros podcast, and he basically said that Tua knew how to throw like every single route in the route tree except for one. And once Terrell Owens fixed them, he was able to do it. And you kind of saw it here. Like Patrick Peterson was draped on Devontae Parker and a lot of stuff, but Tua was just placing the ball in a place where it needed to be. And again, game on the line. Not only was he doing it with his arms, he was also doing it with his legs, which we didn't see that much of in college. Coming out of high school, that's what he was known for. But he basically became a very accurate passer in the college game. So he didn't really need to become a running mobile guy. But we saw him escape the pocket and get through some guys, lower your shoulders, and get the tough yards when needed. So, but I think what all this to say is we are in a very, 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 very bright spot with the young quarterback class that is currently in the NFL with Tua, Herbert, and Burrow. I think all three of these guys I would take ahead of pretty much everyone not in that elite tier of like Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, um, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson, and yeah, I think that's it. And Lamar Jackson, sorry. So like outside of that tier, like I think all three of these guys are fair game. And honestly, you could probably start pushing a case for guys like Justin Herbert over someone like Lamar Jackson. I'm not there yet, but I could definitely see the case for it being built. So really, really good quarterback. So if you're in super flex leagues and you have some of these young guys, I would say like don't worry about overpaying for some of these young guys. If you can trade down, especially from that elite tier to the second group of rookies, I would do that almost every single time. I always advocate for trading down, but I think the quarterback position, especially after this year when you have guys like Kyler Murray just like absolutely letting it up in a shortened season where the offense and passing and everything is up. I'm honestly expecting that to regress more towards the mean next year with a full training camp with defenses getting everything in store. Because we kind of saw this before with I think it was the lockout season, not the lockout, like the holdout season, where it was also shortened season, shortened training camp. It was like the same trend. So I think coming out of the season, I'm gonna start valuing those top tier guys like the Mahomes and stuff a little bit. I'm gonna be looking for trade opportunities for them to kind of trade down into this rookie class, and kind of like see if I can get like added assets on top, because I think that's really going to be a pretty good play going forward, and that's something that I'll be doing going forward. So that's what I was talking about first on the rookie quarterbacks, which kind of segues well into the next part. But before I get to that, a little bit more coverage on my guy James Robinson. Like I said, every single episode we gotta give a shout out to James Robinson because he's that dude, and we are standing for him on this account. I guess he didn't get many targets. I think he got like 2 targets and didn't actually reel any of them in. He dropped one of them as like a one-handed catch, but he got it done on the ground. Got a touchdown, and he just looks good, man. He looks good running the ball. I think the only thing is the targets did go down when Chris Thompson came back. As you remember, like last time when he was balling out on the targets perspective, Chris Thompson was injured. So it does seem like Chris Thompson's going to be a kind of that thorn in the side that kind of holds him back from being full like bell cow status. But in terms of his talent and his ability, it's undoubted. He has been, in my opinion, the best performing rookie running back so far in this class. And if you're still fading him now, man, like I don't know what more data points you really need if you're still fading James Robinson at this point. I think like if that's your take, then you're probably just in take lock forever until next season, and you see like whether they draft someone or whatever excuse you want to make for not having him. I've been in on him for a while, and I think he's worth the risk. Is he risky? Of course he is, because he's undrafted free agent. But when it comes to running backs, man, you got to swing for the fences. And like I always say, man, you gotta play to win. You can't play like a coward in fantasy football because the prizes are so top heavy. You got to play to win every time. When you get a chance to win, you got to go all in and hope for the best, because chances to win just don't come that often. And James Robinson is definitely someone that is that difference maker that can make you win and allow you to win and carry you to the promised land. So rest in peace to all you who sold him high for a second round pick, and those who sold him high for like a third round pick. Never understood that one. Second round pick, like depending on the timing, maybe I could get behind it. But yeah, just like unless you were getting like a 2021 first in a super flex format, it was just never worth it for me. Because hitting on a running back is so rare. Hitting on a workhorse running back is so rare. Hitting on a talented workhorse running back is so rare with the secure role. So James Robinson continues to ball. Do not disrespect the God. Not on this channel, not on my Twitter. I will not have it. I will not take any of it. So make sure you give respect where it is due, and it is most definitely due when it comes to James Robinson. But before we go forward, I've covered a few episodes now where I talked about rebuilds. And that seems to be a topic that really kind of helps a lot of people. It's been a tough season. Some people have went into it. And last week I did something on a strategy I like to call the productive struggle. It's not really a rebuild because you're not rebuilding anything. It's like you started from the ground, going in with the intention of losing to better yourself for the future. And I took you through what that would look like uh, with one of my rosters, one of my 1 year turnaround rosters, right? And I think maybe next week or week after, I think I saw some of these requests. People want to see what I'm doing this year with some of those productive struggles, and I'll give you some of that example. But before I do that, we're like kind of halfway through the season, right? And I think it's a good time to kind of take stock of what those rookie picks mean, right? Because I think a lot of people struggle with trading for rookie picks because they don't watch college, they don't play Devi, and they don't want to get into that stuff. number one, you should try and play Devy League because if anything, it makes you play college, and it really like it gives you like some perspective into what it puts names to those picks, right? For those 2021 picks, those 2022 picks, I think that's what people struggle with. It's like, oh, like that's just a pick, right? They don't know who it is. Like it's not a stud. It's not a, if I'm giving up a like an Allen Robinson, if I'm giving up a Alvin Kamara, if I'm giving up an Ezekiel Elliott, who in my view is a current stud, and I'm giving up for a pick, which is an unknown, which is what all people think. Like it's kind of hard to do that, and I get it. It's a mental barrier that most people can't get behind. But if you get a better understanding of who's in the class, which is what I'm going to do in this episode, is give you a little bit of insight on what I think about 2021 class. It kind of helps you put things in perspective in terms of the talent that's available. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going to go. And everything I do is always super flex. So, you know, if you play one QB league, obviously kind of take QBs off the board or drop them down in the rankings. But as of right now, right, I want to give a little perspective into what the first round would look like come 2021. Who are the studs available, right? Who are some of the guys you can expect in the early round, in the mid round, in the late round of your rookie drafts, in the first and maybe even the early second? Who are the guys you should be targeting? Who are the guys you should be focusing? Who are a couple of my guys who I feel like are super underrated? All right, so I'm not gonna do a full like 1 to 12 ranking. I'm just gonna kind of I like to think about it in terms of tiers because right now, honestly, it's too early to like really just put a solidified number on anyone except for like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, I think. But yeah, I'm gonna give you an insight into some of my tiers and how I think about these guys. All right, so we'll go kind of position by position, right? And I think first off is quarterback, right? Quarterback, super important. Obviously, I just talked about how good this 2020 class was, and that's before we even considered the incoming 2021 class, who many thought were better than the 2020 class. And you know, how what I think about that, I think that they're actually pretty even. If Tua didn't get injured, if Tua was fully healthy, I think it's actually pretty evenly matched. I think Tua is one of the best prospects we've seen, and I've thought that, ever since going back to college. But I think given the injury, like that's kind of where it kind of creeped in. Where like 2021 is a little better. Now that we've seen the 2020 class play and we've seen Justin Herbert do what he does, I'm not so sure anymore. I think I'm not so sure how many, if I would even be willing to take a couple of the 2021 guys over Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, who have already proven it in the NFL and already producing, which is actually, if you play in any Devy leagues, you'll know that like Trevor Lawrence was going ahead of everyone all through the offseason. I took Joe Burrow because I needed him in a contending team. But yeah, other than that, like, I mean, it's going to be a very talented class. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. 101 overall, undisputed. I think it's not even close. It's Trevor Lawrence. He is an incredible quarterback prospect coming out of Clemson. Won his first national championships as a true freshman, and then got to the national championship again, but lost to Joe Burrow and the unstoppable LSU team. Last year, I was actually there for that live. It was a hell of a game. But I'm seeing a lot of people get a little bit too cute with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe it's just they got tired of how good he is, how much of a winner he really is, and how good of a prospect he really is, and started flirting with putting some of these like other guys in the same tier with him. And I don't think it's warranted at all. I think if you have the 101 and the super flex, normally we advocate for taking running backs when it's close, but I don't think it's that close. So if you have the 101 and the super flex next year, I think you have to take Trevor Lawrence. If anything, I wouldn't be shocked if come draft time, Trevor Lawrence is a startup first round pick. I think that's how much he's been hyped. Best quarterback process is Andrew Luck. Everyone's saying it. He's got the rushing upside. He's been a stud since high school. I talk a lot about on my channel betting on serial winners. Guys like T. Higgins, right? Guys like Cam Akers, guys who were really hyped coming out of high school and then exceeded expectations in college and then went to NFL and continue to exceed expectations, as you see now with T. Higgins. Trevor Lawrence is absolutely that, right? He was the top rated prospect in high school coming out, and he went to one of the nation's top programs, took over right away as a true freshman and just balled out. Like he was so good, he couldn't even keep him off the bench, right? And he's been balling ever since, exceed expectations there. He's going to be the 101 pick in the NFL draft. Like it's almost a foregone conclusion. Passing on Trevor Lawrence would just be insane. So he's going to have all the boxes ticked. The one worry is, where does he land? Does he land on the Jets? Does he land on wherever? And at the end of the day, look, if you believe in the talent, you believe in the talent, right? Look at Joe Burrow, right? If you're the best player in the country, or what people view as the best player in the country, you're going to land in a shitty team, in a shitty situation. It's what happens. But talent will overcome that. Look at Kyler Murray, right? He landed in a shitty situation, totally flipped that team around. Joe Burrow is looking like he's going to start doing that. Tua Tagovailoa on the Miami Dolphins, Justin Herbert. These guys are all incredibly talented, and they're going to do that. So Trevor Lawrence, without a doubt, 101. But the other guy that I'm interested in that same tier, I think, but definitely behind Trevor Lawrence, is Justin Fields. And I think Justin Fields and some of the other guys you'll see, I think people are starting to mix up with Justin Fields. look, don't get it twisted, man. Justin Fields is going to be the QB2 of this class, in my opinion. And depending on where he goes, you could even make a case for him being the QB1 because he is like another Cam Newton in terms of his rushing ability, but he is a better passer, and he has been a better passer in college. He has been incredible. I could not believe that freaking Georgia decided to start Jake Fromm ahead of Justin Fields and let Justin Fields walk to Ohio State. Probably one of the biggest blunders of college football. Could not believe it, but they did it. So what are you gonna do? Justin Fields, an incredible prospect. One of my favorite prospects. He was one of the first Devy players I ever drafted, him and Trevor Lawrence in a 14 team super flex league. So I'm excited for 2021, needless to say. But I think he's going to be great wherever he lands. If he lands on, I would love to see him with the Panthers, but I don't think they're going to pick high enough to get there. Washington obviously is a landing spot for him. Jacksonville, man, I would love to see Justin Fields in Jacksonville throwing to LaVisca and DJ Chark with James Robinson in the backfield would just be an incredible match, I think, based on what he's going to do there. But these are the tier one guys, all right? No, don't let anyone else tell you different. Look, I know Zach Wilson is having a meteoric rise, right? I know, Mac Jones having a great season as well. We got prior season hype candidate Trey Lance, who many were already putting in the same tier as Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But this is like the tier cutoff, right? It's Trevor Lawrence and it's Justin Fields. Those are top quarterbacks of the class. The next group of guys is interesting, right? You got Mac Jones, who I think has been playing pretty damn good. That's Ray GQ's guy. He put the stamp on him first as his QB3, at least from what I saw. And I respect Ray's opinion a ton. So that obviously influences me as well. I think Mac Jones, he actually played really well last year as well when Tua got injured, and that kind of gets overshadowed. But he's been balling out this year, right? So Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, who the film grinders are loving Zach Wilson, right? I mean, in terms of what he's doing, I keep seeing clips on Twitter of these types of throws that they're NFL throws. He's got arm talent, blah blah. He didn't do anything last year, and he kind of like transitioned this year, so he's more of like a one hit wonder, and that always like sets off a little bit of red flags for me, and that's why I'll never put him in the same tier as someone like Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, who've been doing it and playing at an elite level for a much longer time. But it's kind of like, the Joe Burrow to Tua Tagovailoa like comparison last year, right? The reason why I really like Tua is because he's been doing it for longer, and Joe Burrow flipped the season and just did it in 1 year. But like, to Joe Burrow's credit, that one hit wonder was the greatest single hit we've ever seen in college football. And Zach Wilson is not doing that. He's been playing pretty good, and he's been playing lights out. Look, he's been incredibly impressive, but let's not get it twisted. Let's not put him into the same tier as someone like Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence yet. If he goes on and somehow outdoes Joe Burrow's season, which is probably impossible, given where we already are, then maybe we can have that discussion. But until then, he's going to sit right in tier two where he belongs. And then Trey Lance, last year's hype candidate who people already had as a QB3. I think Daniel Jeremiah was one of the mainstream guys, had him as a quarterback 3 as a first round talent, top 10 pick very, very early on. So it's going to be a pretty interesting and actually a pretty deep QB class. And then on the back end of there, you also got Kyle Trask, who I guess, nobody really really talked about him. And nobody talked about Mac Jones or Zach Wilson either. But I think early on in the season, everyone was all eyes on Kyle Trask in terms of what he was doing, and Kyle Pitts obviously carrying him a ton to those results. But I think that is kind of that second group of guys out of there. Who do I like? I mean, I don't really spend that much time analyzing QB prospects, but what I will say is like they're all pretty close. And I do like what I've seen from Mac Jones, and I kind of like the hype that Trey Lance got from last year from mainstream. So for me, it's really gonna come down to draft capital again. Like really, I think that's where most of your focus should be. If all 5 or 6 of these guys are first round talents, like people think they will be, I'm not sure there will be 6 QBs going in the first round. But if they do, then like kind of let that do the speaking for you. Right now, I kind of tend to lean a little bit towards Mac Jones and Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, not so much Kyle Trask. But that's kind of where I'm at for the QB class. There's 6 of them. It's running pretty deep. So if you're in a super flex draft, if all of them do go in the first round, imagine if a world where all of them go in like the top 20 picks, you could be looking at half of the first round of the super flex draft being quarterbacks, and that's going to push a lot of talent down, right? And that's going to put a lot of opportunity in those draft picks. And that's why we always say, like, don't worry if you're getting late round first, right? First of all, because no one knows where the team's going to end up at the end of the year, especially in this year, least of all because of COVID. You never know where things are going to end up. So, but even if you do end up late in the first, imagine if all these quarterbacks go in the first, like you're either going to land with like a first round quarterback, which is incredibly valuable, or you're going to get pushed down some of those elite wide receiver talents, which I will cover in a little bit. So it's an exciting time, right? Like those first round picks are incredibly valuable. Those early seconds and mid second round picks also incredibly valuable. As I start going through this talent, you're going to start seeing, I'm going to list off like 18 to 20 players that are extremely talented and could hold a lot of value come this time next year, right? So without further ado, I want to move to the running back. I think arguably this is probably the weakest group of the 2021 class is the running back class. Could you imagine if Najee Harris and Travis Etienne came out last year like they could have, like they should have, in my opinion? They should have declared. They were both ready to go. We would be left with like Truba Hubbard, Kenneth Gainwell, and like Journey Brown and like CJ Verdell and stuff like that. Right? Don't get me wrong. These are good prospects. But they're not like elite top end talents. But thankfully for I guess 2021, not thankfully for 2020, we got Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, similar to Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. These are the tier one running backs of the class, and I would say almost like there's a 2 tier break between these guys and the rest. Najee Harris has been an absolute stud. As good as Mac Jones has been, Najee Harris has been even better for the Alabama offense. He has put the team on his goddamn back, like Marshawn Lynch in that all-time classic video, in terms of carrying his team to the freaking promised land. I mean, I think Najee Harris is probably the more complete back. I would say I'd say that Najee, I feel a little bit more comfortable. If you're drafting before the NFL draft, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with Najee Harris without knowing a landing spot, because I just think that he's very landing spot independent. He has a very broad skill set. He's very versatile, right? I mean, if we look at what he's able to do, he's so nimble, man. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like he's so nimble, he's so agile for his size. This man is 6'2", 230 pounds, right? Like he is like huge, but he is great in the receiving game. You just don't really expect it or see guys that size. He's downfield making tough catches, contested catches. He can take a screen. He could do everything, man. He could freaking do it all. And again, back to the serial winners. Najee Harris. I talk a lot about Cam Akers being the second best running back out of high school, second best prospect coming out of high school, ranked by 24/7 coming into college, right? Do you know who was number one? It was Najee Harris. Najee Harris, again, he came out of high school, was one of the best prospects there. And he went to a program which was known for their running backs, and he continued to exceed expectations. I mean, the stats he's been putting up this year has just been absolutely freaking ridiculous, right? And look, I think Ray called one of his landing spots for Najee Harris would be Pittsburgh Steelers. If he goes there, I think that would make him the running back one, because he is absolutely outstanding as a running back. He would fit that really well. I think another great landing spot for him could be someone like Seattle, where he kind of gives them that grinding power, as well as a threat out of the backfield, right? So Najee Harris is incredible. Okay, so let's just put him up there. If you're in a one QB league, right, it's Najee Harris and Travis Etienne 1-2. I talked a little bit about Najee Harris. Let's talk a little bit about Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne has been probably the most, I guess, explosive running back in college football. Like, I mean, this guy is absolutely balling out of control. He's a TD machine, and his 0 to 60 is so fast. Like, I think it takes him like 2 to 3 steps to go from like stopped to full speed. And once he hits the jetpack, nobody in college football is catching him. He is an absolute burner. Okay. And you can see from all the long plays that he makes. And I think one big knock on him was that he had bricks for hands. I mean, he himself came out and said that, hey, I'm like usually scared when the ball is targeted at me. Like I'm like worried, right? And that is not something you want to hear at running back, but he has clearly worked on it a lot, right? And he has gotten a lot better in the receiving game. He's not a receiver still. He is a screen specialist. So I would say like between the two, Najee Harris is a much more natural receiver in terms of what he can do of running routes, making contested catches, and actually playing as a receiver, catching the ball. Travis Etienne is more of a guy, look, you can dump off to him. He's a capable pass catcher, and in certain schemes, certain systems, he will be able to get it done, right? Like, I think a great landing spot for someone like Travis Etienne would be the San Francisco 49ers, right? Someone you dial up a play for him where you kind of point him and you just point him and go, and he will be able to get it done in that aspect of the game. But he is not as complete. I think Travis Etienne is a little bit more landing spot dependent than Najee Harris. but both just incredible prospects. And the other part of Travis Etienne that he's elite at is his ability to just freaking shake off blocks. I mean, shake off tackles. And like dudes just bounce off him, and this guy does not go down. He has incredible balance, contact balance, as the film grinders say. Um, I'm a noob in that aspect, so I'm gonna pretend to know like what pretend to go deep dive into what that is all about. But all I see is him breaking tackles and dudes bouncing off him and continuing to go. And then that coupled with his ability to accelerate from zero to 60 is incredibly well fitted for today's NFL. Unlike David Montgomery, who constantly breaks tackles and can't do anything with it, Travis Etienne is someone where he can break a tackle and definitely punish you and take it to the house on any given play. So Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, that kind of forms your group one, tier one of the running back group. And then behind him, it kind of starts getting dirty. My running back three was Journey Brown. I think, honestly, it probably still is. But the thing is, he didn't play, right? Journey Brown really needed this season to kind of showcase himself, right? He really came on the scene towards the end of last season. And he looked hella good. I think from what I read, he is a track star as well. So he's going to be a burner when it comes to the NFL Combine and running the 40. He's got prototypical size. He's got an ability to catch the ball as well. I just wish that he got this season to kind of play as a featured back and raise his stock. So it's all going to come down to draft capital. If like the team still believe in him and saw what they needed to see in last year and take him with a day 2 pick, like a second round pick, I'm still going to be all in Journey Brown because this guy this guy had a game in high school where he rushed for I think 780 yards in a single game. It was just insane. It might have been one of the most insane stat lines I've ever seen. I was just like digging up data on some high school prospects, and like that popped up, and it just freaking blew my mind in terms of what he's able to do in high school. So you got Journey Brown, but he did, I still haven't seen the latest on him, but I think like it was an undisclosed like reason or injury or something like that where he just couldn't play. So assuming he's fully healthy and ready for the NFL Combine and he gets the draft stock, I'm still in on Journey Brown. But if not, then you're gonna have to drop him off your draft boards. Truba Hubbard is another prospect in this next tier. Again, a full tier, maybe even more than one tier below the top two guys. Truba Hubbard, part of the 2K Rusher Club last season. Someone else that also could have come out last season but didn't. He's a Canadian homie, so I got to support him. But he's got holes, man. He's not really that useful in the receiving game. He's an absolute freaking liability when it comes to pass pro. And normally I don't really care about pass pro, but I think when you're a massive liability, it kind of threatens your ability to get on the field. And depending on where they land, right? Not everyone can land on the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to probably play an impact. I'm just not as high on Truba Hubbard. I think he's more of like a one-trick pony, right? He's got the Jets, he's got top end speed, but is like he doesn't really have the jukes or the ability to really make people miss in space in tight quarters, which is what I really want to see in the NFL. Like top end speed is great, but you rarely get a chance to get to top end speed in the NFL. So I'm more interested in what they can do in terms of getting chunk yardage more consistently. I'm not sure his game translates as well to the NFL. And then the other guy I want to talk about really briefly is probably Kenneth Gainwell, Memphis RBU. The guys that brought you Darrell Henderson, Antonio Gibson are going to bring you Kenneth Gainwell. The reason why, people always complain about Antonio Gibson having 33 carries, the reason why he did was because of Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell is a smaller back, which is probably one of the major knocks on him, but he is absolutely capable in the passing game. Okay. And if you go look at his collar stats, you'll see that. And he is capable on the ground game as well. Now, is he really built to be a feature back in the NFL? I'm not so sure, right? Maybe he has a skill set. Maybe he lands in a place that lets him. But I think he's probably going to be more of a committee back. Something. His profile is actually kind of similar to like CH in that way, like that he's not really built to be a workhorse. So we'll kind of see where he lands, but like that tier 2 running backs really where it falls off. And as far as I'm concerned, like if I miss on Najee Harris and Travis Etienne, I'm probably going to pivot to the wide receivers, which is what I'm going to move to next. One of the most talented and deep classes that we've seen in a while. But if we look at the wide receivers, man, 2020 blessed us, right? I mean, now we're seeing in NFL as well that we got blessed with one of the, some of the most talented wide receivers and early producers that we've seen. But 2021 is going to bring you much of the same, right? You're going to have some elite guys at the top, but that second tier of guys run super, super deep. And my second tier might look a little bit different than most people. But at the top, you got Jamar Chase, Rondell Moore, kind of separated themselves. starting last year. Kind of still holding that top spot, right? You got Jamar Chase, who was the nation's best wide receiver last year. Rondell Moore, who in my opinion was the most exciting player as a true freshman, obviously got injured. But his true freshman breakout season was incredible. His sophomore season was on route to be just as good, if not better, before his injury. And he was supposed to come back this season. And at first he like opted out, and then he's opted back in, and now he's like not playing again. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't need to play anymore. I think he should just sit the season out and not risk it, and not risk getting COVID like Trevor Lawrence did, and just kind of declare for the NFL, because I think he's going to be a first round pick. At the worst, I think he'll be an early day two pick. So Jamar Chase, Rondell Moore, names you've heard before. I think this year, someone else who, I think people had him in the first tier, Rashad Bateman, hasn't been having a great season. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I haven't really dug into why yet. Could it be because now that he's like the only guy there and he doesn't have Tyler Johnson, it's a little bit tougher for him? Maybe. Could it be that that entire offense is taking a little bit of a shit? Maybe. But Rashad Bateman had a baller true freshman season, a baller sophomore season. So again, he's someone else that's kind of done a lot already. But I think, given what's happened here, I would say he kind of took a little bit of a step back. But someone who exploded this year, again, the Bama wide receivers, Jalen Waddle was looking freaking incredible. So another guy kind of in that second tier of guys before Jalen Waddle got injured. So hopefully he makes a full recovery. That's what we're all hoping for. Hopefully, if you guys saw it, he kind of like got his ankle rolled up on a little bit. So he's done for the season. So you hate to see that. But he was having a baller season along with Mac Jones before he went out. So another really interesting prospect in that tier two. But the guys who I'm really, really interested in are Seth Williams from Auburn. This guy is a freaking beast. They do not build him like him much more. Like he's like 240, 250, like towering, like 6'3" or 6'5", somewhere along those lines. Playing on Auburn. This guy he's just like, Auburn is not known to be a pass heavy offense, right? They're not an exciting offense to watch at all. But in terms of his dominator, his market share of his yards, market share of TD, he is the entire passing offense. And he does what he does on a week to week basis. The way he moves for someone that big is actually quite incredible. He's a bit raw, obviously, in terms of his route running, but he's gotten by a lot on his athleticism. But I'm actually really excited. I mean, he's catching passes from Bo Nix back there, who freaking stinks, and he's making Bo Nix look much better than he is, and he's making that entire offense looking much better than he is. But Seth Williams is locked in, has been locked in top five in my top five wide receivers for a long time. I hope that people are actually no, I hope that people don't do that, so I can get him for value. I can get him in like the late first or like the early second or something like that. But Seth Williams is someone that I would be looking out for. I think you should all be looking out for. And then, someone else who I think is incredibly underrated right now, incredibly underrated, is De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown, those of you who don't know him, he plays on North Carolina with Sam Howell. And I tweeted, I don't know, I forget when it was, maybe it was like earlier this year or earlier in the offseason. But I tweeted on Twitter that I'm officially a De'Ami Brown stan account. And I think, yeah, it was July 8th. And through 6 weeks, here is what he's been able to do. 35 receptions for 641 yards and 6 TDs. He has 35% market share of the team's receiving yards, 43% market share of the team's TDs, 39% dominator. He has 400 yards more than the next closest receiver. There was some discussion about like Ozzie, what's his name? Something Newsome. I forget his first name. Newsome, whatever. They both had 1K seasons last year. And there's some discussion about both of them being kind of like close. De'Ami Brown has taken that and thrown it out the window and said, yo, I'm that fucking dude. I am that dude. I'm going to be the guy that puts the team on my back and carries us to the promised land. And that's exactly what he's done. I think like a lot of people, if you look at a lot of like well-known rankings, I don't even think they have him in the top 10. I have him within my top 6 wide receivers right now. He's firmly in that like tier 2 group right behind Jamar Chase and Rondell Moore for me. And I think he's going to be a fast riser. I think he's someone that you're probably going to be able to get in the second round. I think he's going to be someone like T. Higgins, right? Like someone who gets overlooked and falls to the second round, and you're going to be able to scoop him up, and he's going to be a first round pick by the year after that, just like how T. Higgins is right now. And he's someone that I'm going to, if he gets a draft capital, I think he'll go day 2. Probably in the second round. If he gets that draft capital, I'm going to have him on every single one of my teams because I think he is an absolute fucking stud. And he is a burner too. So I think he's got that going for him in terms of draft capital. We know, like, I don't care about 40 time, but we know how much NFL teams care about 40 times. And that indicates draft capital. And that is ultimately what matters a lot. So Seth Williams and De'Ami Brown are two of my guys in like that elite tier of wide receivers, in my opinion. Some other interesting names, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, the brother of Equanimous St. Brown, the much better brother of Equanimous St. Brown over at USC, catching passes from King Slovis, is going to be another name to watch. He broke out in his true freshman season, had a great sophomore year, and USC is going to come back, and I think he's going to do similarly great things come down the stretch. So he's another guy to watch. And then one other guy who I think should be interesting is Terrace Marshall. So Terrace Marshall has been absolutely fucking balling out. He has like emerged as the better receiver on the LSU offense this year so far. I mean, the LSU team stinks, right? So there's not many bright spots, but Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall are two of them. And Terrace Marshall was buried behind the depth chart behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, who's obviously emerged as one of the best young talents in the NFL. So it's understandable. But when he got his opportunity, which he did this year, he basically freaking balled out. So another name to watch. But as you can see, man, wide receiver hella deep, right? If you take the running backs that I talked about, plus the quarterbacks, plus the wide receivers, you're like 20 something players, right? And obviously some of these guys will go back to school as they inevitably do. Damn shame. Some of these guys will fall off because of draft capital. But let's say you even assume like, a fourth of them fall off, right? You're still looking at a good 12 to 15 players. And that doesn't account for the guys that will emerge later on down the line. So you're well into the second round of your standard 12 team Superflex draft. So there's a lot of freaking talent there. And that's why I always say you need to value the rookie picks, because attaching some of these names to those picks is what's going to get people excited. And when you play in Devy leagues, or if you don't want to play in Devy leagues, that's fine, man. Just listen to my pod. I will cover this stuff as the season goes on. Probably not on the main channel, because I don't think Nick and Noah of them are really looking over to the Devy side of things yet. But I've been playing this for a while already, so that's why I'm kind of like obsessed about some of this stuff. So I'll continue to cover this type of stuff on Market Watch Mondays. If you want to see more of these names and more info about 2021 class, absolutely just comment below and let me know, and I'd be happy to do so. But I hope you found this episode helpful, because I wanted to put some names to those picks, right? Like I said, it's really hard to give up studs for just a number or a digit, like a future rookie pick, an unknown, so to speak, an unknown value, even though it's the safest value around, but an unknown value. But once you start looking up some of these names and attaching names to those picks, that's when you get excited. And that's like, you're getting that kind of like pre-rookie fever before the mainstream gets it, right? And when the mainstream hits it, rookie fever's not be at its peak, and you're going to already know most of these names off the back of your hand. You're going to already know who you're supposed to be targeting in the second round. You're already going to know about De'Ami Brown, who everyone's going to overlook. You're already going to know about Seth Williams, who, should really be in that conversation for the top wide receiver, but everyone's going to overlook anyways. You're already going to know these names, and that's my goal, right? I want to keep you ahead of the competition, ahead of the game, so that you know what the fuck is up when it comes time to your rookie drafts. So you're not like stumbling like who to pick, because you already know who the hell you wanted, and you would have already known, other people overlooked, and who your guys are, and how you can trade back and navigate in the draft. Hopefully you followed my draft strategy and like hoarded and corner the market on the rookie picks. That's going to allow you to navigate and attack the players that you want while still gaining value and trading back in drafts, right? That's the whole point of understanding this shit. And if you are in a productive struggle and you are in a rebuild, I wanted to give you this episode now, because I want to give you the fucking hope. I want you to see the future is goddamn bright, and it can be. And it's going to be an exciting time if you took a rebuild approach, if you built around the young rookie quarterbacks, like I said, if you corner the rookie draft market, like I said. You're going to be able to navigate the draft, trade out, get value for veterans, and still land studs, man. It's not going to be a problem. I promise you. Anyone who panics on rookie picks, I think it was like 2 months ago, and people were like, oh my God, like COVID. Oh my God, like they're not going to have enough like playing time. Oh my God, they're not going to develop. Just ignore that advice, right? I told you to ignore that advice then, and hopefully you did, and hopefully you scooped up rookie picks at value based on buying on that panic of just like frantic, unwarranted panic, because you are going to capitalize on another stud class. And I didn't even talk about the tight ends, right? Those of you play in like tight end leagues, this is probably one of the most exciting tight end prospect classes ever, and you don't really get excited about tight ends. Personally, I don't invest high picks in tight ends, because you got to wait for a while for them to hit, and you can always get them later for a discount, like always, right? And I know right now all the talk is about Kyle Pitts, Ford, and he is an incredible incredible prospect. In that tight end premium, maybe I can warrant taking him ahead of like some of these stud wide receivers or running backs. But like even then, I struggle to do it. I'd rather just go quarterback and running back and then wide receiver and let someone else like bite the bullet and sit on guys like Kyle Pitts and Brevin Jordan, Pat Fryermuth. Those are some of the top prospects in my opinion. That's 1, 2, 3. Kyle Pitts, Brevin Jordan, Pat Fryermuth, in terms of like sitting on them and letting them develop on their teams. But for me, I'm gonna focus on the other guys. And like I said, unless it's tight end premium where you want to go Kyle Pitts and just sit on him for a little bit, fine. But not really advised, from my opinion, in a strategic perspective, because if you look at the hit rates of tight ends, it's just not good, and you can almost always buy him for cheaper a year later. It's like without fail, rinse and repeat. Someone drafts a tight end really early, and then you can kind of gonna grab him for a fraction of the price a year later, even though they are really good prospects. So I would say, look, don't go too crazy on there, but if you bring tight ends there, and if you think about how other people think about tight ends, those 3 tight ends, I would not be shocked if people took them in the first round as well. So again, you're pushing wide receiver talent down the board. You're talking about getting someone like De'Ami Brown, who in my opinion is one of the top 5 wide receivers. You're talking about getting him maybe in the late second, right? Maybe in the late second round, where you got like Laviska Shenault this year. So look, it's an exciting time, and I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into how to think about the upcoming class, why you should value your rookie picks, why you shouldn't sell low, why you should never sell your rookie first as a low first pick, because you just never know what's going to happen. And even if it is a first, you're still looking at the potential of studs coming in that class, or at the bare minimum, the potential of flipping that first for a veteran stud because of all the rookie hype fever that's going to be happening at that time. All right. So that was a bit of a long one. I hope you guys caught everything. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. And, it helps us more than you know. Comment below what you like, what you didn't like. Hit me up on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Shoot the shit with me. You DM me. My DMs are open to anyone. I try and answer as many as I can. Um, Assuming I have the time, sometimes it gets over flooded, but I honestly, I try to look at all the things that I can. But yeah, just follow us, subscribe, hit that smash button, and hope you guys enjoy it. I'll be back at you again next week for another episode of Market Watch Mondays. I never give up on this, even though it's tough, man. My work is fucking me right now, but I try to make the time for you guys, because I want you guys to win. I want you guys to be ahead of the pack. I want you to be part of the fucking Wolf Pack. It's gonna be a sweet, sweet, sweet ride in the offseason, man. Stick with me, because the offseason, in my opinion, sometimes is more fun than the in-season, especially for dynasty players. If you're picking up dynasty, picking up Devi, it's gonna be a great time analyzing this class, especially because of all the crazy shit going on. So trying to understand the nuance of the numbers and the analytics behind it is going to be super intriguing for someone like me. And if you stick with me, I'm going to show you the ins and outs of everything you need to know. I'm going to give you the ins and outs of the players to like, players to follow. Hopefully, if you follow me this year, you found the same successes that I have. And going into the next couple of weeks, I'll probably pull up some of my productive struggle rosters. I'll pull up some of my contending rosters, kind of show you what I'm doing in season with my teams, to give you guys something to benchmark off of as well. If you guys want to see more of that type of stuff, comment below. Let me know. Yeah, I mean, dude, hope you guys enjoyed. That's it. Wolfpack out.